So in trying to undermine God with morality, you've actually used morality to prove God does exist.
Look, Trent, I'm not trying to undermine God. I'm saying that Deuteronomy commands that you stone your wife to death, and I think that's immoral. You're the guy that's on record as saying stoning your wife to death could be moral depending on the circumstances, not me. Welcome to Briefing. Is the book of Deuteronomy the word of a perfectly moral and just God? Or is it the writings of ancient, ignorant barbarians who had fictionalized a God that represented their values and cultures at the time? That is the topic for today's briefing training. The book of Deuteronomy is the fifth book in the Bible. The first 5 books of the Bible are often called the Pentateuch and provide the history of creation and the Israelite people. Much of that is laws and ceremonies, which are mostly documented in the book of Leviticus and then repeated again in the book of Deuteronomy. Going back thousands of years to the Mosaic Law, it's not really hard to imagine that an Israelite mother might become somewhat disenchanted with an angry, narcissistic God who was ruling by threats and intimidation, demanded constant animal sacrifices, and really didn't deliver on the promises that he was constantly making. These are not the types of personality traits that mothers are drawn to at all. It would be no surprise that this Israelite mother might find a peaceful moment at sunrise more spiritual than slitting a lamb's throat. She might think to herself, the sun, it provides me with the light that I use to see the children that I love by, and it helps to produce the flowers that are brightening our village right now. She might start to wonder about the Lord your God that she's been worshiping, and that God bloodthirsty, always demanding more and more blood. She might start thinking to herself, no, let us worship the sun. And she might actually go to her husband and talk about it. Maybe she's going to go around and start spreading this word to her neighbors that she wants to worship the sun instead of the bloodthirsty Jehovah, Lord your God. So what are they supposed to do with this sweet woman who's going around trying to convince people that the sun is actually the thing that provides beauty and peace and life? What are they going to do? The woman's husband throws the first rock, smashing the mother of his children in the face. The savage mob, they pick up their rocks and start hurling them at the terrified woman. This goes on for we don't know how long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. It ends when the woman lay there dead in a pool of blood and brain. The savage mob is satisfied. They have stoned this sun-worshipping woman to death. The woman's husband, as he looks down at her corpse, he's proud. He has done exactly what the God of the Christian Bible has told him to do. Do these passages recorded in the book of Deuteronomy, do they contribute to the ideas of religious freedom, human dignity, and justice? No, they clearly do not. This is religion through terror and violence. Do not be fooled by celebrity pastors who get on television and for political reasons demand that America return to Judeo-Christian values or the principles of the Bible. What these pastors conveniently take out of their speeches is the verifiable fact that the Bible's principles are those of savagery, cruelty, and barbarism. The incompetent God of the Old Testament, Jehovah, is constantly promising abundant blessings for faithful obedience, yet he delivers on none of it, not even able to convince his own chosen people of his worth. So he resorts to spectacles of violence that are akin to the world's worst dictators. If somebody were to ask you, would you stone your own wife to death? What would be your immediate reaction to this?
would you stone that person to death if you were an ancient Israelite living under the Mosaic law? You affirm that conduct. Would you do it personally yourself?
How does a Catholic reconcile these passages in the Mosaic law, Trent?
So, John, what I would do is here's a principle that I would follow, and I'm curious if you would follow this. I would always follow the commands that an all-knowing and all-good God gives me. Would you do the same?
I'm sorry, I did speak over you, so I missed your question. I apologize.
I would follow the commands that an all-good God who created the universe, who is the sum of perfection itself, I would follow the commands of that which is perfection itself. Would you do the same?
No, I wouldn't, because it's not perfection. Would you do it if it was your own wife? Would you stone your own wife to death?
So, John, you're saying that it is a fact that it is wrong to execute someone because they practice a certain religion.
I think that is certainly an American fact that we have religious freedom. I'm going on American values, not the values of the God that you worship. You still haven't answered my question. It sounds like you would in fact stone your own wife to death, because that is in fact what the God of the Old Testament in Deuteronomy 13 and again in 17 demands that you do if she tries to get you to worship the sun, which is really not that bad.
John, would you have a problem if this woman was telling people she wants them to worship the sun, and the best way to do that is to sacrifice their children, which happened frequently in antiquity?
Well, that's a different thing altogether. I would have a huge problem with that, obviously, but that's not the situation that we have.
Why isn't that religious freedom, John?
Well, no, John, she's practicing her religious freedom. And that was very common in religions of that time, to sacrifice their children to the sun or to other deities. Should they be free to practice their religious freedom?
Even in the United States, religious freedom has its limits. That's murder, so we don't allow people to murder other people and then use religious freedom as an excuse for that. So no, it wouldn't be.
Would it be okay if we as a country changed our laws and allowed a religious freedom exemption for sacrificing children? If we just changed the law, just like other things, we've changed the law before on slavery and segregation and same-sex marriage. If we changed the law and allowed sacrificing children to sun worshipers, deities, if that was then an American fact and law, would there be anything wrong with it?
Yes, I would be totally opposed to that. I would fight that. I would fight that with everything that I had in me.
John, how do you know it's wrong? How do you know it's wrong?
I believe the Constitution of the United States is pretty clear that, the mantra of American values is that.
So it sounds like your basis of morality flows from whatever American law and the Constitution says.
Okay, so you've moved these goalposts, you've built a straw man for me to argue against. You haven't really answered my question. The fact is...
Fine, I'll answer your question. Yeah, I would carry out, if I was in ancient Israel, I would carry out God's law, and I would enact capital punishment against those who broke God's law. And if they very well know the law, don't you think people should be held accountable? So there, I've answered your question. I know you find that repugnant. But I believe your view is the repugnant one, because you have no standard for morality. So my question for you is, does morality, your source of morality, is it an American legal document? Is that your source of what makes things right or wrong?
Yes, it's called the Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution. I'm a little bit, to say that I don't have a source of morality because I don't believe in stoning my own family members to death is a little bit...
So, John, then here's my question. Does the Constitution have amendments?
Yes,
The method of Christian apologetics, apologists are people who explain and defend the Christian faith, is to formulate reconciliation arguments for the many absurd, barbaric, and contradictory biblical passages, and then spoon-feed those reconciliation arguments to gullible Christians who swallow them whole. The Bible is not the Word of God. It's the word of an ancient people who were fearful, superstitious, and they were writing about the things that they were observing, but that they did not understand. They were coming up with these laws and ceremonies based on their own personal superstitions. That's what the Bible is about. It is not the word of the creator of the universe. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day and stay safe.